Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a UK versus US book covers for 2024 releases. So this is a series that I have done a few times now on my channel, but not for a little while, where I look at new book releases or upcoming book releases as well and see how the US and the UK covers compare to make a subjective decision on which edition I might want to buy or which edition I think looks prettiest. As we know, the US and the UK a lot of the time align with their book covers, that they are the same or very, very similar. However, there are instances where they completely diverge and go very different paths with the covers, and sometimes the UK does a better job and sometimes the US does a better job, and it can be hit and miss which way around it is. And sometimes you just don't even realise that there are different covers out there, that you're going about your life seeing one cover because that's what you've been presented with, whether that's in stores or online, and then suddenly you realise that actually there is another cover and it's better. So hopefully this video will show you some of the options that are out there. And if you are after any UK editions, then I do have affiliate links for both Blackwells and Books Please, which are UK based bookstores which have an online shop which ship internationally for a very reasonable price and generally have pretty great selections of books as well. So those will both be linked down below if you're interested in checking them out. Anyway, without any more preamble, let's just get into things. So I'll go through these 10 books which have got different covers for 2024 in order of release date. And actually I found these a little challenging to find, that I feel as though in previous years I found loads and I did like 2 of these videos per year, but now there seemed to be much more alignment between the covers, and if there were different covers it was for special edition book boxes and not so much for a UK US thing. But I did manage to find 10 different covers, and if you know of any other ones then please let me know, because I did some scouring of the internet for these. Okay, so the first of these is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, which came out on the 6th of February. So I like both covers here. I think both are really pretty. Starting off with quite a close call, I would say. I think the UK one, I like the bright pop of red in the middle and that sort of bluey, greeny, purpley-ish shades going on around it. I haven't actually read the book, so I can't say which one is most loyal to the book itself, because that is one other thing, that you can get a very pretty cover but it's not loyal to the book. So I can't comment on that, but I do think it's quite pretty. And the same with the US one. The US one I feel is more, I don't know, not simplistic, but old world book. And I don't know if it's got a dust jacket or not. It's hard to tell from the image of it. It sort of almost looks like the hardcover itself. But I like all of the imagery that is used on the cover, and just the general aesthetics of it. I like the vibe. I think it's close because I like them both, but I would go for the US one is my winner for right now. So that's 1 point to the US. Also in February, Kristen Hanna released The Women on the 15th of February. So I've not actually read any Kristen Hanna, but I think she's quite a popular author, most known for The Nightingale, The Great Alone, but she actually has quite a few releases. I actually haven't really seen many people talk about The Women, but it does have slightly different covers, although down the same theme. They both went red, and you can really see that they both went red because they're very red, and they both went with the same undertones as well. There is a goldy undertone in both of them, so there's a lot of similarities between the US and the UK cover here. I mean, I'm guessing this is a World War II story featuring women, without having read too much into the synopsis, but I do think I prefer the US one. Actually, I sort of like I don't know, maybe not the tones of it, but the way that it's red with the gold edges, and then the shades that are used with it's not quite a silhouette, but the shadow of the plane and the trees, compared to the UK one, which I don't know, I just prefer this. I think the style, maybe the typography as well of the US one, that the UK typography is quite blocky and it's not my favourite type. So US wins again. Come on UK. I don't know, the part of me that is British wants the UK covers to win, but it's not always the way it goes. So come on UK, hopefully you can get one at least. Next we have The Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli, which came out on the 29th of February. So this one actually has a different name between the UK and the US. It's called the Crimson Moth in the UK and Heartless Hunter in the US, and the Crimson Moth series. So a little bit confusing there with the naming conventions of it. I'm not sure why it differs. In the UK, it's a very red cover, matching the name being Crimson. This is a YA romantasy story, which I know follows a witch and a witch hunter, and they are opposing forces, but they end up falling for each other. Very red cover with some green accents for the UK side of things, and then a really nice blue on the US with a more moth-like. I mean, both of them have the moth in there, but I don't know, I feel like the moth is more present on the US one, or it's a bit bigger than on the UK one, where it is in the centre again, but it seems to take up less of my eyes are less drawn to it, especially because it's red on red, whereas on the US it's red on blue. So although I love the colour blue, like it is one of my favourite colours, I've always loved the colour blue, I'm actually more drawn to the UK one, which seems weird because that colour blue, really, like I like that colour blue, but actually in this instance I am preferring the UK one here. I can't quite say why, but the UK one wins for me. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the US one. Maybe it's that the moth is just a bit too big. Maybe the moth is too big, too there, too in your face. I do like both. And I like them both compared to the, I think it's the Fairy Loot one, which I just don't like. I mean, I think a lot of people have liked it that unboxed it, but I'm like, I don't really like this. I don't really like it. I don't like how the moth is like on her eye, and no. And it's too much of a person. Face. It's very much a face, so I don't like that. I much prefer the standard edition covers than that special edition one. Also on the 29th of February, Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Pornicek came out. I think this is again a sort of woodsy romantasy book that's recently released, and weirdly this one I've only seen US booktubers talk about it, and I think generally give it quite good reviews. So I've only seen the US cover, and it was when I was looking for UK versus US covers that I found out that there was a different UK cover, because I had only been seeing the US one, which now seems weird because I live in the UK, so I would have thought that I would have been seeing the UK one, but I don't think I have seen the UK one anywhere. I don't think I have, but I like the UK one. That's the weird thing, that I really like the UK one, so I'm actually very happy that I've seen that it exists now. So these covers are very different, very, very different. There is not much similarity between them. The US one is, I don't know, it's very people-centric. It gives off the woodsy vibe, which I'm assuming it's woodsy because of the vibe that I get from this cover. And I assume it's going to be a love story between the two characters that we have on the cover. But yeah, I mean, I quite like it. I think it gets the vibes of the book across quite accurately. And then the UK style, very different. It's got a very nice blue. I've told you I like blue. I think I've said it in multiple like videos of these that I like the colour blue, or like blues and purples. Those are like my favourite colours. I definitely like the colour scheme of the UK one better than the US one, but I think the US one does a better job at depicting the book. Not that I've read it, but it's very hard to understand what the vibes are from this UK cover. I think it's very pretty, but I don't know what to expect from it. I mean, I get the woodsy vibe again because there are the trees going up the sides of the book cover, but I couldn't really tell you very much about it. Whereas I feel you do get more out of the US one, although I would probably go for the UK one. I probably would go for the UK one and go for the one that doesn't actually tell me very much, but I think is pretty. Although I think that some people will definitely find the US one prettier. Some people really like that art style and the way that is depicted. I definitely see people that gravitate towards that style, although I think I would go for the UK again. Okay, cool. UK it is for me. 2-2 now. UK is catching up. It looks so Waterstone's done an edition of this as well, with purple edges and trees coming up the edge, which looks very pretty. I'm really surprised that I actually haven't seen this when going into bookshops. Okay, and then the next one came out, I think in February in the US, but in March in the UK, the 7th of March precisely, and that was The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden, one that I own but have not read. I did buy this one because I have loved the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden, so I am definitely interested in reading this one. It just hasn't happened yet, but it will, I promise it will. And again, very different vibes between the US and the UK here. The UK has gone for a blue edition with gold accents. I think you get the musical vibe from it, and I like the way that the gold sort of borders the front of the cover, but otherwise not much that you really get from it. And then the US one has gone for very much like a portrait style cover, that it looks that you've got the gold, then you sort of got like the, I don't know, mirror frame, like the framing with the title, and then some hands with the rose. I do think it's quite elegant, but I don't love it. I would lean to the UK one on this one. I think there is some elements to it. I do quite like the typography I think they've chosen, but overall I prefer the general style of the UK one. I don't know if the Warm Hands of Ghosts would look prettier in person for the US one, if actually the gold of it and the way that it's all put together looks nice in person, but based on the images, and actually I have seen the UK one in person because I own it, I do think the UK one would win for me. UK one for me here. Okay, I can see why people might vote for the US. Okay, and now an author that always seems to be getting different covers, and that's Emily Henry, who released Funny Story on the 23rd of April. She consistently gets a different cover between the US and the UK. I have all of her books in the UK covers, but actually I think I prefer the US editions, although I'm just going to keep collecting the UK ones because that is where I live, and so that for ease it is most practical for me to get them. And I do quite like how Waterstones do these like ombre sprayed edge editions, which I've now been not collecting because they've only done it for her new releases, but that's what I've been going for. So UK, I do like the colour tones in it. I do like the orange, purple, blue. I think I do like that. I do like the way it looks with people at the bar, because I have read this book and this does make sense to me. I think everything makes sense with this cover. I just don't really like the typography they use on the UK covers. I think it's very blocky. I think it's similar to the one that they had on the Kristen Hanna one. It's not very aesthetic. I don't know. I don't really like the typography that Emily Henry gets. There are elements in the UK one that I definitely prefer, but I have so much more preference for the US typography that it just beats out the UK because of it. The UK typography just gives me it gives me the ick, which is a saying I never say, but there we go, that's what that typography brings out with me. In terms of like the rest of the image, the way the characters are together, I prefer that on the UK cover, and the colours, but I'm gonna have to give this one to the US purely for the typography, which I don't think is even that great a typography. I just hate the UK one. Again, at the end of April, Dragon Rider by Tara Matheru came out. This one on the 25th of April. I don't know loads about this one, but I assume that there is somebody that writes dragons in it, or it is a very dragon-centric fantasy, which is exceptionally popular at the moment. The UK US, very differing vibes. US has this person on the cover. It's a very dark cover, a very, very dark cover, all blues and blacks and darkness, whereas the UK one is a much whiter, brighter, lighter cover. Very different colour tones, very, very different colour tones. I mean, I know I've been saying how much I like blue, but in this instance, it's, I think, too dark, don't really like the typography on the US. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I don't know if I like the vibe. I think there's something not quite right with it. Like maybe if they made the sky more of like a purple or like a Northern Lights type thing, probably not realistic to the book, but like that, a brighter sky, it might have given it more of a pop, whereas the way it is right now, it's quite dark. Whereas the UK one I don't think is doing anything that exciting, but I think it's pleasing. I like the yellow, orange, red dragon shape. I think it gets the message across. It does seem quite simplistic. It feels like it's missing something, but I don't know what that thing is. Maybe it's missing the Waterstones exclusive edition, which has a beautiful ombre sprayed edge from yellow to red. Maybe it's that. But I'm going to go for the UK one for this one, purely because I'm not a fan of the style of the US one. You can tell I'm not like a graphic designer or anything. Everything is just vibes here. There's opinions and vibes and no real like logic into why I like something. Just that I prefer something over another. Then on the 6th of August, T. Kingfisher has A Sorceress Comes to Call coming out. I'm assuming this is her new fantasy release. I think she's been doing a few of these sort of shorter fantasy releases most recently. Books like Nettle and Bone and Thornhedge, I'm assuming this is going to fit into a similar vibe as those. So I'd say between these covers they are similar, that they both have a darker theme to them and then an artistic image laid over the top, but in slightly different variations. So the UK one has this lock at the front. I'm assuming that's going to have some significance. Needle and thread, keys, so lots of different imagery interspersed throughout the UK cover, whereas the US one has less imagery. It's focused on these trees and stars, so less sort of ideas of potentials what it could be about. But I think on this one I'm preferring that US cover. I am preferring the trees, the stars, the typography I like on this one for the way that they've done the title, the way that it's just like there in the middle with the goldenish trees around it. I quite like that. Whereas I think the UK one actually looks quite busy. It looks like there's a lot going on. It's sort of, overpowering. The lock's a bit overpowering with those brown and blues and golds, and I don't know, I feel as though the simplicity of the US one wins on this. So another point for the US. Then on the 13th of August, Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid comes out. So this is her latest release. I've read a couple of her books, The Wolf and the Woodsman and A Study in Drowning. I haven't read Juniper and Thorn. That one came out a few years ago. That one I have not read. But this is her latest release, which I assume is a retelling of Lady Macbeth. And once again, very different covers here with very different vibes. The US one is a very much person facial imagery on the cover, with a very vivid pink typography. It's a bold choice, that pink. It's a very bold choice. It sort of reminds me of that film Marie Antoinette, because that had a very pink title on it, very like bright pink title. So it sort of reminds me of that, which I guess it was another retelling of a, well, no, Marie Antoinette was real, but a female misunderstood figure. The UK one looks quite dark. So again, it's got the person on the cover, but it's done in a very differing style. It looks a lot darker and more gothic and grimmer, I would say, the UK one than the US. I think the very pink title gives the US one a sort of like levity to it, or like a, what's it called, like a black comedy is the vibe that I would get from the US one. And having not read the book, I don't know if it actually is serious or if it's comedic, but that's what the pink type does for me on the US one, is it makes it seem like a black comedy, which is not the vibe I get from the UK. The UK seems like it's a serious book. Well, not that black comedy is not serious, but hopefully you know what I mean. But it definitely seems grimmer, darker, more bloody. I wouldn't say I'm in love with either of the covers really, but I would go for the UK version over the US version. The person is very much it's a face, whereas it is more of an artistic style in the UK, which I prefer, and I do think they've done the colourings of it quite well. I think it draws me in a bit more. It would be interesting to know which one depicts the book better, like if it is serious in its like grimness, or if it has a comedic nature to it. I mean, I don't know if other people get the comedy if the bright pink makes them think of comedy, but an intriguing design choices there, but I'm gonna go for UK. The final one is A Dark and Drying Tide by Alison Saft, which comes out on the 17th of September. I feel like, again, this one, I've only been seeing the US cover around, but actually there is a UK cover too. The US one is quite a dark cover, black and white themes, two people on it, sort of, it looks as though they're lying. Not sure what they're lying on, but lying down. And then the UK one has, I feel like, more of a fairy tale vibe to it. You've got the two people looking out over like a pond, and then the title in a goldy font, whereas yeah, the US one's in a white font. I think I like the US font more than the UK font, although it's quite close. I think that they're both nice fonts. I will support both fonts here. I do not know which one depicts the book best. I don't know much about this book. I don't know which is more accurate, whether it's more of the gothic or more of the fairy tale, because yeah, that's what the vibe I get. The US, gothic. Yeah, the US I get the gothic vibe, the UK I get more of a fairy tale vibe. Not sure which way it goes, or if it goes slightly both ways. Hard to tell. In terms of the aesthetics, I think I prefer the UK one. I like the style of it, the way that it's done with the flowers and the pond-like imagery. I like the gold of the cover, the gold of the title, despite preferring the typography used on the US one. I don't know if I really like having that imagery of the people's faces so close. Whereas you get the backs of them on the UK one. So I think I'd go for the UK one again here. UK wins again. Now there is a noticeable book which I knew and know is going to have a different cover, but neither of the covers have been released yet. So it can't be included here because I have no covers to show. But I know that Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson is going to have a different cover. We know that the UK and the US are not going to be the same. They are going to differ, we know that. But I don't know what it's going to look like. Either way, we know that it comes out on the 6th of December. We know that it's coming out and it will have different covers, but who knows what those are quite going to look like. So those are 10 2024 book releases that have different covers between the US and the UK. So tallying it up, despite the slow start, UK has ended up winning for me with 6 points and the US got 4 points, although quite a few of them were very close. So I can understand if people go either way, but that is where I'm leaving it. Let me know if you know of any other books that have different covers for 2024 releases, as I find it so interesting to see how different designers go with different books. And obviously thank you to the authors for these books and to the artists for designing these covers. Just because I might have preferred a UK or a US one, it's not me critiquing or not liking any of the artwork that these artists have done, because I know that it takes a lot of work to put these covers together, and then I've just gone and judged them purely on first looks and have no real standing to be judging your artwork. No offense to any of the artists, I do think they all do an amazing job at attracting us readers to books. Let me know your thoughts on any of these, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye.